Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It happened on a Saturday evening, right as the sun was dipping behind the oak trees in our backyard. We were hosting a barbecue. Friends, neighbors, colleagues, all gathered around for grilled ribs and good music. The patio lights were just starting to flicker on when I reached to put my arm around my wife. Dana. She twisted out from under me like I'd spilled wine down her dress. Her eyes flashed. "Don't come near me," she hissed, low enough for only me to hear, or so she thought. A few heads turned. Conversation slowed. I blinked. "Excuse me." She backed away, smoothing the hem of her sundress with that sharp grace of hers. "You heard me, Michael. Don't pretend like we're something we're not." I kept my voice steady. "You mean married? You mean the woman I put through grad school? The house I pay for? The life I built that you're standing in?" That got her. Her face flushed. Red, not embarrassed, but furious. Around us, the laughter and chatter started dimming. Even the music seemed to fade into background static. A few guests exchanged awkward glances. One guy nudged his wife with his elbow. Dana turned sharply toward the patio table, forcing a fake laugh. "Oh, please, Michael," she said loudly, theatrically. "Why don't you go brag about your paycheck to someone who still thinks that's impressive?" I felt something snap. Inside me, the air got thinner. My hands curled into fists, not out of rage, but to keep myself grounded. I wasn't a man who lost it in public. But Dana? She knew how to corner me without ever raising her voice. And still, I couldn't walk away. "Not yet. You want to humiliate me in our own backyard." I said quietly. "Fine. Just don't forget who paid for the stone under your heels." Dana's jaw tensed, her smile flickering. Then she turned to our guests with that razor-sharp charm she used like a weapon. "Everyone, Michael's feeling a little possessive tonight. You know how some men get when their wives don't play the trophy part." Laughter. Nervous, clipped. Eyes on me. I didn't move. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me to explode, to yell, to make a scene she could twist later. Instead, I straightened my shirt collar and took a slow step back. "Enjoy your kingdom, Dana," I said under my breath. "It's built on sand." I walked away, to the edge of the yard where the citronella candles flickered near the garden. From a distance, I watched her laugh and sip her wine like nothing had happened. But the murmurs had started. The whispers had begun. That night, something settled into me. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Clarity. You see, I wasn't always like this. Just a year ago, I was the dependable one. Up at 6, out the door by 7. Senior systems engineer at a firm in downtown Austin. Dana didn't work, not anymore. She'd decided law was exhausting and said her mental health needed space. I gave her that space. Spa weekends, Pilates instructors, designer furniture she'd barely touch. I was building a life. She was burning it. But tonight wasn't just a bad moment. It was the reveal. She wasn't hiding it anymore. Not the disdain. Not the contempt. And I wasn't pretending anymore. That was the moment, backlit by string lights and false smiles, when I knew. This wasn't my wife anymore. This was war. Later that night, after the last guest left and the scent of charcoal still clung to the porch, I found Dana at the kitchen island, scrolling her phone like nothing had happened. The house was quiet, unnaturally so. Our place wasn't big, but everything inside gleamed. Marble countertops, built-ins, pendant lighting straight from some catalog Dana insisted on. Cold, stylish perfection. I leaned against the opposite counter, arms crossed. "I think we need to talk," I said. She didn't even glance up. "About what? Your little meltdown?" "No," I said, voice calm. "About you publicly embarrassing me in front of 20 people." She finally looked up, phone still in hand. "Please. I embarrassed myself by pretending I was still proud to be married to you." The words hit like a slap, not because they were shouted, but because they were said so plainly. Like she'd practiced them. Like she'd meant them. I kept my tone steady. "If you've got something to say, Dana, now's the time." She set the phone down, folded her arms, and tilted her head. That smirk. God, I knew it too well. "Fine. You want truth?" she said. "I'm tired. I'm tired of playing this perfect wife role for a man who thinks buying things equals love." "I never asked you to play anything." "No," she snapped. "You think running errands and nodding politely at your coworkers is a marriage? You go off to your job every day like a robot, and I sit in this house slowly dying from boredom. You think this is happiness? You told me you didn't want to work." She laughed, short and hollow. I didn't want to be owned. I shook my head slowly. Nobody owns you, Dana. But I did give you everything you asked for. I supported your decisions, your therapy, your freedom. Spare me. She cut in. You supported what you thought made you look good. You bought me things so you could say, look what a great husband I am. But the truth? You don't see me. You don't challenge me. And I'm done pretending this is enough. I walked over to the table and sat down. My hands felt heavy against the smooth surface. So what are you saying? She leaned over the island, eyes gleaming. I'm saying this marriage is a costume. I could walk out tomorrow and find someone better in a week. For a second, I thought maybe I misheard. I looked at her, really looked. Same sharp cheekbones, same black polish on her nails, same woman I married 5 years ago. But none of the warmth was there. None of the girl I met on the lakeside trail. None of the late-night dance-in-the-kitchen woman who once whispered dreams into my chest. All that was gone. What happened to you? I asked quietly. She shrugged. I woke up. We sat there in silence, the kind that presses in behind your eyes. The overhead light made everything look clinical, like we weren't a couple in a kitchen, but two strangers dissecting the corpse of something that used to matter. I gave you everything I had, I said finally. She rolled her eyes. Then maybe you should have kept something for yourself. I stood, not in anger, just done. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. Suit yourself, she said, already picking her phone back up. As I turned down the hallway, I heard her thumb tapping the screen, fast, like someone who couldn't wait to start the next conversation, just not with me. That night, I lay on a too-firm mattress in the guest room with the fan humming overhead. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was surgical, like something had been removed from me, and now the room echoed around the space it left behind. And for the first time in 5 years, I didn't check if she locked the door. I didn't care, because something inside me had gone still. And I knew, Dana wasn't just gone. She'd been gone for a while. Tonight, she just let the mask drop. For the next 3 weeks, Dana acted like that night never happened. She still ordered groceries like clockwork, still left her empty yoga mat unrolled in the living room, still filled her Instagram with latte photos and filtered shots of our backyard. Her captions, healing comes from within dizzy #self-love, were especially rich, considering she hadn't spoken more than 3 sentences to me since the argument. But behind her little digital daydream, I was building something very real. Quietly, methodically. It started with an email to Peter, a friend I trusted, and one of the guests who'd been at the party. I asked him plainly, "Do you remember what Dana said that night?" He replied within the hour, "Yeah, man. Everyone heard it." Honestly, we were shocked. I wasn't going to say anything, but she was cold. Mean even. "You good?" I wasn't. But I told him I'd handle it. And I did. I reached out to 3 more people who'd been there. Sarah, Jill, even Tom from my old department. Their reactions were nearly identical. Disbelief, concern, then quiet support. Every statement I got, I printed. I kept them in a folder beneath my workbench in the garage. Between invoices and old house repair estimates, no one would look there. Then came the hard part. I sat in the car outside a glass office building downtown and stared up at the 5th-floor window for 20 straight minutes before I finally stepped inside. Jared Silverman, family law attorney. He didn't look like the sharks I'd pictured. No slick back hair or expensive cufflinks. Just a tired man in his 40s with a coffee-stained legal pad and a voice like sandpaper. "I read your intake form," he said. "Your wife embarrassed you in front of your social circle, threatened your worth as a partner, and told you she could replace you." He looked up at me, deadpan. "That's more than hurt feelings. That's reputational harm, especially in a state like Texas." I swallowed hard. "So, what do I do?" "You file first," he said. Quietly. "You control the tone. We stay professional. Clean. Let her bring the drama if she wants." "And if she does?" Jared leaned back in his chair. "Then we let her. Judges don't like noise. They like facts." I nodded. "File it." 2 days later, I signed the documents. And I didn't say a word to Dana. I still made coffee every morning. Still trimmed the hedges. Still drove to work and back with the same tight-lipped calm. But something inside me had shifted. I was done bleeding quietly. The day Dana was served, she was in the middle of watering the houseplants. I watched from the window as a woman in a navy blazer walked up to the porch and handed her a thin envelope. Dana opened it right there, barefoot, with a half-full watering can in one hand. Her head jerked up like she'd been slapped. She looked toward the house, locking eyes with me through the glass. Then she laughed. A cold, casual sound, like she was already spinning it into a joke. She held the envelope in the air, waving it like a party invitation. Really, Michael? She called through the screen door. This is your power move? You file for divorce behind my back and let some legal intern hand me a letter like I'm a tenant being evicted? I didn't answer. Not out of cowardice, but because I had nothing left to explain. Dana scoffed and stepped inside, tossing the papers onto the counter. You think you're going to win something in court? Please. You wouldn't survive 5 minutes in front of a judge. I looked at her, my voice calm. Then I guess we'll find out. She blinked. For the first time, there was a flicker, uncertainty. She turned away quickly. You're pathetic. But her voice didn't have the same venom. She disappeared into the bedroom, and I heard the slam of drawers opening. Probably texting someone. Probably building her own little army. Let her. Because I had the truth. And it didn't shout. It documented. The hearing fell on a drizzly Tuesday, gray skies, windshield wipers thudding slow as I pulled into the courthouse parking lot. I wore the same navy suit I'd bought for our wedding reception. Funny how life circles back, isn't it? Dana arrived late. She stepped out of a black SUV and sunglasses, even though there was no sun. A white coat, heels too high for a courtroom, and that same arrogant tilt to her chin, like this was just another lunch meeting she'd already decided she'd win. Inside, the room felt smaller than I imagined. No jury, just the judge, a clerk, 2 tables, and the quiet hum of fans in the ceiling. Dana sat across from me with her lawyer, some young guy in a plaid tie who spoke with a lot of unnecessary confidence. Jared, my attorney, sat beside me calmly, flipping through pages with the quiet assurance of a man holding aces. The judge was firm and unreadable. Mid-50s, sharp bob, no jewelry. The kind of woman who'd heard every excuse twice and didn't care for theatrics. It began with the usual division of assets, bank statements, real estate listings. Dana's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, my client gave up her legal career to support Mr. Maynard's lifestyle. She managed the home, handled social obligations, and endured emotional neglect. She is requesting full rights to the house and an equal split of all assets. Jared waited a beat before rising. Your Honor, we have 3 signed statements from neutral witnesses confirming that Mrs. Maynard publicly degraded and humiliated my client during a gathering in their shared home. Her comments were not only emotionally abusive, they were reputationally damaging. Then came the moment neither Dana nor her lawyer expected. A witness walked in. Callie Wilson, Jared announced. Mrs. Maynard's cousin. Dana's face twisted. Callie stepped up to the stand in a modest blouse and flats, voice low but steady. I was there, she said. I heard Dana tell Michael not to come near her. She said she could find someone better, that the marriage was meaningless. I remember people going quiet. I remember feeling embarrassed for him. Dana snapped. You little traitor. Mrs. Maynard, the judge said sharply. You will not interrupt. Jared calmly handed over a printed copy of Callie's statement, along with 2 others from party guests. When the ruling came, it felt like the air changed. The court awards ownership of the property to Mr. Maynard, the judge declared. Additionally, due to sufficient evidence of verbal degradation and social misconduct, Mr. Maynard will retain the primary financial assets listed in the pre-discovery documents. The court does not find justification for spousal support. Dana's jaw hung open. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering something, but she shook him off. Outside, on the courthouse steps, she finally turned toward me. You think this makes you a man? You think keeping the house makes you the winner? I didn't respond. I just looked her in the eyes, nodded once, and turned to walk down the steps. That silence. It echoed louder than anything I could have said, because that was the moment she realized. I wasn't fighting her anymore. I was already free. The quiet came first. After the ruling, after Dana stormed out of the courthouse, after the keys were legally mine and the paperwork was done, there was just quiet. No footsteps pacing at night. No slammed doors. No voice from down the hall saying my name like it was a curse. Just the soft hum of the fridge, the occasional creak of the hardwood floor beneath my socks, and me. Alone. At first, I buried myself in work. I stayed late at the firm, tinkering with software builds and client frameworks long after the janitorial crew had come and gone. My job at Halston Dynamics was stable, senior systems engineer for over 8 years. Reliable. Focused. I didn't have to think about anything except code and deadlines. People noticed. Burning the midnight oil again. Jeremy from IT would ask, sliding past my cubicle with a wink. I'd nod, maybe smile if I had the energy. Deadlines don't sleep. But truthfully, I liked the numbness. I liked having somewhere to be at 8 p.m. besides my echoing living room. Then, about 6 weeks after the hearing, rumors started. You hear about the new manager? Angela from HR whispered to a coworker at the water cooler. Real numbers person. Came from Denver. No nonsense. Cold as a spreadsheet, someone else said with a smirk. By the following Monday, the whispers had a name. Madison Quinn. The first time I saw her, she didn't enter the building like most people. She arrived early. Before 8. No fanfare. Just a smart navy suit. Hair pulled into a clean twist. Glasses perched low on her nose. She didn't smile. She didn't apologize for being direct. She moved like a woman who'd been underestimated before and didn't have the patience for it anymore. Our first interaction was brief. I was in the conference room preparing for a team meeting when she stepped in, tablet in hand, flipping through numbers. "You're Michael Maynard?" she asked without looking up. "That's me," I replied. "You were 10% over deadline on the avian interface. But the error rate was 0. Correct. Not many engineers can pull that off. I flagged it. Good work." Then she walked away. No warm chuckle. No slow building rapport. Just facts. Delivered like data. But something about it hooked me. That was the thing with Madison. She didn't try to be liked. She didn't soften her voice to make men comfortable. She walked through the building like she owned every hallway, but never once boasted about it. She didn't flirt. She didn't charm. She just was. And after everything I'd been through, with Dana's performative affection, the cold cruelty hidden behind polished smiles, Madison's honesty was refreshing, even if it came wrapped in silence. Or perhaps because it did. Over the next few days, I noticed how the office began to shift. Deadlines tightened. Sloppy reports vanished. Meetings started exactly on time. Some employees grumbled. Others straightened up fast. Me? I watched her. Not because I was interested in starting anything. Not yet. But because something about Madison Quinn told me she wasn't hiding behind anything. And for a man like me, still nursing bruises beneath a quiet exterior, that was enough to stir curiosity. Just curiosity. For now. It was just past 9:30 on a Thursday when I noticed the flicker of light under Madison's office door. Most nights, by that hour, the place was deserted. Empty chairs, humming monitors, the smell of old coffee fading into carpet. But there she was, seated behind her desk, a screen full of red alerts casting a pulsing glow across her glasses. I leaned in the doorway. "Everything all right?" She didn't look up right away. "Not really," she muttered, fingers flying across her keyboard. "System gateways down. We pushed a version live too early. Internal servers are choking on the rollback." I stepped closer, scanning the error logs behind her shoulder. "You've got a feedback loop in the firewall queue. See that spike?" She blinked, sat back slightly. "Yeah, I see it. Mind if I?" I gestured toward her keyboard. Madison hesitated just a second too long. Then she pushed her chair back. "Be my guest." I slid into the seat, fingers already typing. After a quick trace and 2 rerouted variables, I initiated a soft bypass. The alerts stopped flashing. Silence. Then Madison let out a soft, almost imperceptible sigh. "That fixed it." I nodded. "Temporary patch. You'll want to scrub the variable limits in the morning. But the system's stable for now." She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Not defensive, just unreadable. "I've had that issue flagged by 3 contractors," she said. "None of them caught it. They were probably looking at the server," I replied. "But the fault started in the redirect logic. You can't patch the wound if you don't find the bleed." She gave a small smile, barely more than a twitch. But it was real. "Okay," she said softly. "You're good." "I try." I stood, brushing my hands off. Madison didn't move, but her eyes lingered longer than they usually did. "Michael," she said, her voice measured. "I'm grabbing coffee before work tomorrow. One of those independent places. If you're around." I raised a brow, amused. "Is that your way of saying thank you?" "It's my way of admitting you saved me from 8 hours of angry emails," she said. "So yes." Madison rolled her eyes lightly, but didn't deny it. 7:15. Brew and ledger on 5th. Sounds like a plan. She gave a quick nod, then turned back to her desk. Already refocusing. But I didn't miss it. Her hand paused over the mouse for just a second longer than it needed to. The next morning, the place was half empty when I got there. Small tables, soft jazz in the background, chalkboard menus full of overcomplicated drink names. Madison was already seated. Black coffee. No laptop. Just her. "Didn't think you'd actually show," she said as I slid into the seat across from her. "You gave me a time and place," I said. "That's more than most people offer these days." She smirked faintly. "You're not what I expected." "Neither are you." We sat for a few seconds in silence, sipping. Then I asked, "So what did you expect?" She shrugged. "Another guy who thought tech was about ego, not logic." "Those guys burn out fast," I said, "and leave broken servers behind." We both chuckled, quietly, awkwardly. But it wasn't tense. It was easy. Madison looked out the window for a moment, then back at me. "I'm not great at this," she admitted. "Small talk. Unstructured conversations." "You're doing fine." Another silence passed. This time, she didn't try to fill it. I studied her then. Not the manager who ran meetings like clockwork or the voice behind urgent Slack messages, but the woman in front of me. Guarded, yes, but thoughtful. Watching, weighing, learning. There was warmth under all that precision. She just didn't let many people see it. But somehow I had. While we're mid-story, subscribed to keep the momentum going. I didn't plan to fall for her. But something about the way Madison didn't rush through silences, didn't flinch from them, started pulling me in. That first coffee turned into a few more. Then a late lunch. Then a casual "you hungry?" after we stayed late handling a crash in the logistics module. Dinner was never fancy. She didn't care for high-end restaurants. The first real one we shared was at a quiet diner on South Lamar. She ordered a turkey melt. I got pancakes at 9 p.m. "I don't do rules when it comes to food," she said, sipping from a chipped mug. "Breakfast for dinner is sacred." I knew you were secretly rebellious. "Don't ruin it," she smirked. "I'm trying to protect my terrifying reputation." That was the first time I laughed. Not just a polite chuckle, but something real. It felt strange, like remembering a song I hadn't heard in years. We started taking walks after work. Sometimes around the block near her apartment. Sometimes through the trail behind my neighborhood. She always wore sneakers. Always kept pace just a step ahead of me, like she was pulling me forward. "I used to walk like this as a kid," she said one evening. "It's where I did all my best thinking. And now, I try to do less thinking." She looked over at me, her tone softening. "You make that easier." That line sat in my chest for days. Not because it was overly sentimental, but because it was true. We didn't crowd each other. Didn't push for too much. Some nights we didn't say much at all. Just sat on my patio, legs stretched, wine in hand, watching the sky melt into dusk. One night, she curled her legs under her and said, "I've only ever been in relationships where I had to lead, make all the decisions, manage their emotions and mine." I nodded, understanding too well. "Same," I said. I didn't even notice until it was gone. How heavy it was carrying someone else's resentment all the time. Madison looked at me for a long while. "I don't want to be anyone's project, Michael." "You're not." She leaned into my side without saying another word. That night, she stayed. It wasn't fast. It wasn't fiery. But over the next few months, we became something steady. By late spring, she'd moved into the house. Quietly, without ceremony. A toothbrush appeared in the bathroom. Then a stack of plain black mugs in the kitchen. One afternoon, I found her folding my laundry like she'd been doing it for years. No comment, just humming under her breath. I stood in the doorway watching her for a moment. "You're sure you're not secretly a nurturer?" I asked. She didn't look up. "You hush. I'm ruining my brand for you." I grinned. That weekend, we drove out to the lake. Just the two of us. There was no band, no chairs, no aisle. Just Madison in a pale blue dress and me in a shirt she once called less tragic than your usual ones. A justice of the peace signed the papers. We said our vows quietly, eyes locked, hands steady. Her voice didn't tremble once. "Partnership," she said, slipping the ring on my finger, "is the only word I care about." Mine either. We stayed by the water long after everyone left. Feet in the grass. Arms around each other. Not because it was romantic, but because it felt deserved. Earned. I didn't feel like a man who got rescued. I felt like a man who reclaimed. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for something to go wrong. I was just there. With her. And it was enough. Grief doesn't knock. It doesn't send a warning. It just barrels through the front door and sits across from you at dinner, waiting. The call came on a Tuesday. I was at work, halfway through debugging a faulty scheduler script when my phone buzzed. I saw the hospital's number and felt the cold start in my chest before I even answered. My dad, James Maynard, had passed in his sleep. Heart failure. Quick, they said. Peaceful. He was 67. I didn't cry right away. I didn't say much of anything. Just nodded, thanked the nurse, and sat at my desk for 20 silent minutes, staring at the screen like the lines of code might rearrange themselves into some kind of explanation. By the time I got home, I had shoved the pain down so deep I couldn't feel it anymore. Madison was in the kitchen, lighting candles. Spaghetti on the stove. Music playing low. Hey, she said, smiling as she stirred. You're home early. I hung my keys slowly. He's gone. She turned instantly. Your dad. I nodded once. She walked over, wrapped her arms around me gently, and I let her, for all of 5 seconds. Then I pulled away. I'm fine, I said too quickly. I just want to eat and not talk. Madison didn't push. She just nodded and set the table quietly. We ate in silence. Or tried to. Halfway through the meal, she reached across the table and laid her hand on mine. I know you don't want to talk now, she said, but when you're ready. I said I'm fine. I snapped, sharper than I meant. Her hand pulled back. Madison blinked, then looked down at her plate. I'm not your enemy, Michael, she said softly. I didn't say you were. No, she said quietly, but you're acting like I'm in your way. I pushed my chair back hard. I didn't ask for advice. I didn't ask for candles or pasta or speeches. She didn't react. Not with anger, not even hurt. Just this quiet steadiness that somehow made my chest hurt more. I just thought you might want comfort, she said. But if you don't, I hear you. She stood, cleared her plate without a word, and headed down the hallway. I didn't follow. I stayed at the table, feeling the walls close in. I could still taste the garlic, still hear the soft jazz she'd cued. And underneath it all, that voice in my head, my dad's voice, telling me, don't be one of those men who confuses silence for strength. I barely slept that night. Sometime around 2 in the morning, I walked into the kitchen, just wandering. That's when I saw the note on the counter. Madison's handwriting. Neat. Unfolded. I'm here when you're ready to talk. That broke me. I didn't even make it back to the bedroom. I sat down right there on the floor, back against the fridge, and let go. Shoulders shaking. Eyes burning. Every memory with my father came rushing in. Christmas mornings, his toolbox, the time he drove 6 hours just to help me fix a leaky sink. And when the tears finally stopped, I stood up, walked down the hallway, and pushed open our bedroom door. She was awake, reading. Madison looked up, eyes soft. I didn't say anything. I just walked over and sat beside her, then leaned in, pressing my face into her shoulder like it was the only place I trusted not to collapse. Her arms came around me, slow and sure. No speeches. No I told you so. Just presence. And for the first time since the phone call, I felt like I could breathe again. Not because the grief was gone, but because I wasn't alone in it. Time moved differently after that night. Madison and I never had a formal conversation about my breakdown. There were no dissected sentences or heavy-handed debriefs. We just kept moving. But something shifted. We started eating on the porch again. We made plans again. She'd squeeze my hand when she passed behind my chair. I'd bring her a second coffee just the way she liked it. Dark roast, splash of almond milk, no sugar. A rhythm was forming. One built not on grand gestures, but quiet, daily repair. The grief didn't vanish. It visited in flashes. In the way I stared too long at the old wrench set my father left me. In the smell of fresh-cut grass that used to mean Saturday mornings and his laugh over the radio. But every time it returned, Madison didn't try to push it away. She just sat with me, listened when I needed it, let me drift when I didn't. It made me realize just how wrong I'd had it before, how love wasn't the fireworks Dana always chased, but the steady warmth of someone who showed up even when there was nothing to fix. And then, one evening in late October, the past came tapping again. We were finishing dinner, lingering at the table as twilight filtered through the blinds. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. I reached for it instinctively, but Madison grabbed it first. I got it, she said, rising from her seat and walking toward the living room. Hello. I watched her posture shift subtly. Straight, calm, but alert. This is Michael's wife, she said coolly. Yes. Madison. There was a pause. Then her expression darkened, but just slightly. I couldn't hear Dana's voice, but I didn't have to. I knew that cadence, the way she coiled every word to sound casual while meaning the exact opposite. Madison's mouth curved into the faintest smile. That's funny, she said. You calling now? Months of silence, and suddenly you're just checking in? She turned slightly away from me, voice steady. I know women like you, Dana. You only want what you lost the moment someone else holds it. Another pause. No, he doesn't need to hear whatever you rehearsed. I know the game. You come in sweet, drop some guilt, maybe stir a little curiosity. You're not here for closure. You're here for control. She listened for a moment longer, then added with brutal grace. I'm not angry. I just don't lose sleep over background noise. Goodbye, Dana. And with that, she ended the call. Madison set the phone down gently on the coffee table and returned to the kitchen, picking up her wine glass like nothing had happened. She wanted to stir something, she said, meeting my gaze. I stirred it back. I couldn't stop the smile that broke across my face. That was Madison, unshakable. And in that moment, I knew for sure I hadn't just married a partner. I'd married peace that could stand its ground. The night was supposed to be simple. Rooftop lights, soft music, a few old friends from the firm gathered to toast Jeremy's new place in downtown Austin. Madison and I arrived just after sunset. She wore a fitted navy dress, her hair pulled back with quiet elegance. As always, understated, but unmistakable. We moved easily through the crowd, talked work, sipped drinks, laughed. For once, it felt like life had no sharp corners waiting to cut. Until she walked in. Dana. She wasn't on the guest list. But there she was, draped in a red silk dress about 2 inches too bold for the setting, laughing loudly before even reaching the main room. A few people turned. Some didn't recognize her right away. But I did. And so did Madison. Dana spotted us within seconds. Her smile sharpened. Michael, she called, weaving between guests like she still belonged. I stayed still. Calm. She came right up, eyes flicking toward Madison, then back to me with feigned surprise. Oh, she said sweetly. You brought someone. Before I could respond, she leaned in close, her voice just above a whisper. Remember that bar in Fredericksburg? That cheap wine, that tiny bed, that, don't come near us, I said, clear and calm. Dana blinked. She pulled back, still smiling, but it twitched. Oh, so protective now, she said. Didn't seem that way when I. Then Madison spoke, voice cool and crisp as polished glass. Begging suits you, Dana. You almost made it look casual. The conversation around us faltered. People glanced our way. And for once, Dana wasn't ready for the spotlight to turn on her. She chuckled, too loudly. I was just being friendly. You were being obvious, Madison replied, sipping her drink. And a little desperate. You might want to recalibrate. Dana's smile started to crack. Wow, she muttered. This is what he likes now? Cold and clipped? No, I said simply. This is what I like now. Someone who doesn't need an audience to feel valuable. Someone nearby choked back a laugh. Someone else whispered, not even trying to hide it. Dana's eyes darted around, catching it all. The sideways looks, the smirks, the quiet realization that no one here was on her side. Her confidence crumbled fast. You think you've won something? She hissed under her breath. You think she's better than me? Madison tilted her head slightly. No, Dana. I know I'm better than the version of you he escaped. Dana went pale. And the room, polished floors, exposed brick, wine glasses frozen midair, suddenly felt too small for her. She turned, heels clicking hard against the floor, and stormed out. The door shut behind her. Phones lit up. Texts, group chats, screenshots. By morning, people would be quoting Madison's line. Someone already had it on a story post. Begging suits you. But me? I just looked at Madison, still holding her glass, perfectly calm. You didn't have to do that, I said. I know, she replied. But it felt good. And as the crowd slowly returned to laughter, music rising back to normal, I reached for her hand and held it like I'd never let go. 6 months later, we were standing in a half-painted living room, staring at 2 swatches of beige that looked exactly the same. Madison tilted her head, squinting. This one's technically warmer. I raised an eyebrow. We've been debating for 20 minutes. They're identical. They're not, she said, smirking. But I'll let you pretend you had a vote. We laughed, softly, comfortably. and went back to brushing color onto the walls of what was slowly becoming our new home. It wasn't massive, not like the house Dana and I had, but it was ours. A fixer-upper with uneven floorboards, a cracked porch step, and a backyard overrun with wild grass. Madison had fallen for it the second she saw the view from the patio. "We can grow things here," she'd said. And we were. That evening, we sat out back with a bottle of wine between us, paint still on our hands. The sun was slipping behind the trees, and the breeze carried in the scent of cedar and dust. She looked over at me, barefoot on the concrete, knees pulled to her chest. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. More than okay. I didn't launch into a speech. Didn't try to put some ribbon around the chaos of the past year. I just looked at her. This woman who never asked me to perform, never kept a scoreboard, never raised her voice just to feel taller. And I realized something simple and true. I had a partner now. Not a rival. Not a storm disguised as a trophy. But someone who met me halfway, and sometimes further. And maybe that's what love really is. Not the fireworks. Not the drama. But the steady hand that helps you rebuild. Brick by quiet brick. That was the end of my story. I still think about what Madison said to Dana that night. Begging suits you. She didn't raise her voice, didn't cause a scene, just cut through the noise with truth and calm. Part of me wonders, was that the right way to handle someone like Dana? Or was it too harsh, even if she deserved it? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you've ever seen someone stand their ground with that much class. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more real stories like this one.